Hi, everyone. So I'm going to talk about the story of Sheikh of San'an and his love for the Christian girl, which is one of the most emblematic love narratives that appears in Attar's Mantaqater. Of course, in some manuscripts, San'an is spelled as Sam'an. Now, the story is told at a very important moment in the larger narrative when the birds are uncertain about their journey and the right course of their path towards the Seymour or the divine. And the Hupo uses this story, just like he uses all these parables and examples all throughout the book, to teach the birds about spirituality. Whether Sheikh Sanan's story is a mere fiction or there is some truth behind it is unknown, although there have been numerous attempts to identify Sheikh Sanan's um, personality or identity and prove that he was not a fictitious character. Some scholars argue that Sheikh San'an's name is a reference to this sheikh named Ibn Saqqa who lived in Baghdad in the 12th century. Others suggest that the story of Ibn Saqqa was so popular at the time that having heard the story, Attar would have used it, but not have changed the name of the main character, particularly because Saqqa and San'an rhyme. Another speculation is that Attar was probably aware of and had read a similar story about an individual called Abdul Razzaq San'an in Muhammad Ghazali's Tuhfatul Muluk, who lived in Yemen. Despite numerous attempts to learn about Sheikh Sanan's identity, there is no definite information about his life, his spirituality, his personality to this day. Attar's Sheikh Hassan On in Mantaqater is an eminent ascetic who spent 50 years practicing abstinence and penance with his 400 disciples. He never transgressed any of the Islamic traditional moral codes and laws until he embarked on a journey from Mecca to Rome after having had a dream. He subsequently falls in love with a Christian girl, converts to Christianity, burns the Quran, and begins drinking wine and going to taverns and bearing the zonar and herding the girl's swine. He transgresses basically all the moral and religious boundaries of Islam. And wearing zonar, or the belt worn by unbelievers, mostly Christians and Zoroastrians, who paid tribute in the Islamic regions to be differentiated from the Muslims, was an act of subversion by the Sheikh. Although the Christian girl lived in Rome, which was not an Islamic region, where the belt might not have had this significance, it can nevertheless be read as in this story as an indicator or signifier for the sheikh's non-Muslimness, like a minority position or status. What Sheikh Sanan did was considered blasphemous. This was an absolute rebellion on his behalf, but eventually, due to the prayers of his most loyal disciples and the intercession of Prophet Muhammad, he regains his senses, converts back to Islam, and returns to Mecca. At this point in the story, the Christian girl who fell in love with the Sheikh sees in her dream that she must follow the Sheikh to Mecca. She meets him in the desert on the way, converts to Islam, and dies immediately. By the end of the story, both Sheikh Sanan and the Christian girl have undergone outward and inward transformations. The girl who is portrayed as an earthly love object at the beginning of the story and whose only desire is to satisfy her own worldly urges, by the end of the story turns into a symbol of heavenly love and helps her lover purify his soul of worldly desire. So this is an example of earthly love functioning as a doorway or a bridge for the love of the divine. The Christian girl therefore becomes the shahed, the earthly manifestation of divine beauty in human form that leads this ascetic sheikh to the pure love of the divine. However, during the process, she is also transformed. So one can say that the sheikh also functions as a shahed for the Christian girl. Advancing with a critical analysis of the story about Sheikh Sanan and the Christian girl, we can see that the Sheikh faces the Christian other, falls in love with her, and subsequently transgresses all these laws of Islam. In the meantime, considering that the mystical relationship is embedded in the earthly, suspicion of conversion, as well as conversion itself, is crucial on the score of identity, expression seeking, allegiance, self transformation, and psychology. Hence, the sheikh is provided with an opportunity to acquire an alternative spirituality and subjectivity. And violation of the religious laws creates this opportunity for the sheikh to accept the religious other, the Christian girl, and in the meantime to construct his subjectivity and spirituality. Now, in Sufi literature, a Christian child or a Christian girl and boy is regarded as the earthly manifestation of divine love in human form, the love of whom is the first step on the divine path for the Sufi wayfarer. Learning to love the Christian child and finding one's way back to Islam are two of the hurdles that the Sufi wayfarers, such as Sheikh San'an, must overcome in order to perceive divine love and to be united with the divine. Now, the Khoda's لغتنامه defines ترسا شدن and ترسا گردیدن as conversion to Christianity. The noun tarsa derives from the Persian verb tarsidan, which means one who fears or dreads. However, it is a Middle Persian term which commonly refers to a Christian. Franklin Lewis argues that although the term tarsa was employed sociolinguistically in the Middle Persian period, it seems to have had a negative connotation, referring to those who were seen as kafars or non-believers, even though they were people of the book. Attar refers to this Christian girl in Sheikh San'an's narrative as Tarsa, reminding us of that sociolinguistically negative connotation, which is one more reason to observe the Sheikh's interaction with this non-believer as subversive. In Persian literature, in the 11th century, Nasser Khosrow identified Parsayan as Christian Trinitarians in his Jam' al-Hikmatin. In this book, he writes that they are a category of Christians, and I'm quoting, who say that God is three and all three are one, end quote. And this is cited in Franklin Lewis's article, Sexual Occidentation. The word tarsa also appears in the works of 10th century poets like Kasai and Ferdowsi. The Christian child or tarsa bache required a symbolic Sufi meaning, as Mahmoud Shabestari described in his Gulshan Raz, Garden of Mystery. Shabestari uses various mystical terms such as the ruined taverns of the Kharabat, the Saqi cupbearer, the Shahed Ifib, the Zonar belt, the Christianness of Tarsai. The symbolic Christian child emanates light and serves as both singer and wine server. Nonetheless, she or he, because this is a Christian child, girl or boy, she or he is also the one who reveals and destroys the pretentiousness of the ascetics, the Sufis, the mosque-goers, the fuqaha, and all those on the path of religion. The Christian child transforms everyone's world, converting some to believers, some to infidels. This Christian child is the figure that helps an infidel to save the corrupt soul. She or he awakens a worshiper from the sleep of negligence and purifies their soul. Through this Christian child, the worshiper in Gulshan Raz discovers his ultimate identity and reality. Now, the Christian child is also an important symbol in Attar's poetry, including in Manteqater and in Sheikh San'an's story. Conforming to the same rhetoric, the Christian girl who leads the Sheikh of San'an away from his conventional asceticism and entrances him with her beauty is the same one who initiates him into the higher religion of love. Through the image of the Christian girl, Attar illustrates how this same earthly manifestation of divine beauty, being both an idol and the Christian child, seduces the sheikh and transforms him into an unconventional Sufi master who contemplates divine beauty in female form. Before meeting the Christian girl, Sheikh San'an was a pious ascetic. However, after his encounter with her, he becomes a real devotee of religion of love. Attar shows how this Christian girl helps the Sheikh to convert from what Elahi Qomshei says, illusory Islam majazi, to real infidelity, kufr haqiqi. As Leonard Louisan comments in Attar's works, and I'm quoting, love's great act of subversion was, both erotically and religiously, with the divinity or icon of the divine appearing to the Sufi lover in Christian or Zoroastrian form, end quote. Now let's compare the Sheikh's asceticism with his mysticism of love. Jalal Sattari writes that asceticism without love causes arrogance and vanity and creates an illusion of union with the divine. Being infatuated with pretentious asceticism is the result of self-conceit, which is itself the consequence of egoism. And egoism is the worst kind of idolatry. Contrary to pretentious asceticism, love annihilates the ego and guides the Sufi wayfarer towards perfection. Now, this reading of asceticism presumes that a true lover is free from worldly matters, social concerns, egoism, and self-conceit. To be a true lover, the Sufi wayfarer has to move beyond asceticism. Although it might seem that an ascetic turns into a selfless human through self-discipline, the truth is that an ascetic's lower self, that is the nafs, is looking for a good opportunity to reappear and imprison their soul again. Therefore, mere piety and asceticism do not refine the Sufi wayfarer's soul and do not annihilate the nafs. It is only through the trials and pains of love that an ascetic can truly and completely polish the mirror of their heart. This is the process that Sheikh San'an must undergo to transform from an egoistical ascetic into a love mystic. It is important to note that Sheikh San'an's self should be broken, the nafs broken in order for him to merge with the divine. And for this union, the sheikh has to break some taboos. But from the beginning of the poem, Attar emphasizes that this is possible only through love. Now, the juxtaposition of asceticism and mysticism appears in the beginning lines of Attar's poem about Sheikh of San'an and the Christian girl, where Attar begins the narrative by relating that the Sheikh has reached perfection in asceticism, practices mortification day and night, and has mysterious skills and abilities of healing people. So let's read what Attar writes. شیخ صنعان پیر عهد خویش بود. در کمال از هرچه گویم بیش بود. شیخ بود او در حرم 50 سال. با مریدی 400 صاحب کمال. هر مریدی کن او بود ای عجب. می نیاسود از ریاضت روز و شب. هم عمل هم علم با هم یار داشت. هم عیان هم کشف هم اسرار داشت. Here's the translation. Sannan was once the first man of his time. Whatever praise can be expressed in rhyme belonged to him. For 50 years, this sheikh kept Mecca's holy place. And for his sake, 400 pupils entered learning's way. He mortified his body night and day, knew theory, practice, mysteries of great age, and 50 times had made the pilgrimage. So although he has reached perfection in asceticism and mortification, the sheikh has never experienced love, that is the earthly human form of love. So the love of Christian girl is intentionally, basically divinely sent to him as a trial on his spiritual path. Since Sheikh San'an is an ascetic, the Christian girl, his beloved object, should indeed repulse him. As an ascetic, he should avoid associating with women. As a Muslim sheikh, he should not be interested or attracted to a Christian girl. And Marie Chamel argues that the frenzy of love is beyond all religious and social boundaries. It defies logic and puts the sheikh in a state that he himself would have never anticipated. Now, Attar illustrates how divine beauty reveals itself in the form of a human or in the form of a woman, and how the love of this woman, being so deep, can change the entire orthodox life of a sheikh into an unconventional Sufi mystic when he surrenders to this love. So the Christian girl becomes the shahid, the earthly manifestation of divine beauty and love, through whom the sheikh can contemplate the divine presence on earth. Regarding this frenzy of love, Attar narrates that when the sheikh meets the girl for the first time, she lifts her veil, fire erupts in the joints of the sheikh's limbs, and when the sheikh sees the girl's face, he falls in love with that idol's face and loses control completely over himself. He falls unconscious because of this intense love. So let's read this. دختر ترسا چو برقع برگرفت بند شیخ آتش در گرفت چون نمود از زیر برقع روی خیش بست 100 زنارش از یک موی خیش گرچه شیخ آنجا نظر در پیش کرد عشق آن بت رو کار خیش کرد شد به کل از دست و در پای افتاد جای آنش بود و در جای افتاد. The Christian turned, the dark veil was removed. A flare flashed through the old man's joints. He loved. One hair converted hundreds. How could he resist that idol's face shown openly? He did not know himself. In sudden fire, he knelt abjectly as the flames beat higher. In that sad instant, all he had been fled, and passion's smoke obscured his heart and head. So Attar uses the word veil here, or burqa, which is kind of covering or veil, to explicate two different layers of the poem. So firstly, it refers to the veil, the literal veil that the girl is wearing, and the removal of which is, of course, seductive for the sheikh. In the next line, Attar refers to the fact that the maiden's unveiled hair can enslave the sheikh and thousands of sheikhs. Although the sheikh tries to avoid being tempted by the seductress, he is caught in a flash of fire and passion, loses control, and falls. Now, on the other hand, if the girl is an earthly manifestation of divine in human form, this veil is the veil of ignorance, the veil that hides the divine from the ordinary people's eyes. The earthly love of the Christian girl sets fire to the sheikh's heart after the unveiling occurs. And this is compared to the process of the Sufi undergoing the ritual of unveiling or the union with the divine on the path. When the divine unveils, he sets the Sufi on fire, and the Sufi falls unconscious and bewildered. In Sheikh San'an's case, the unveiling of the Christian girl brings bewilderment and then awareness to him and leads him away from his disciplined asceticism to love mysticism. Yet, loving the Christian girl is a difficult task. And this is what Attar tells us. عشق دختر کرد غارت جان او کفر ریخت از زلف بر ایمان او شیخ ایمان داد و ترسایی خرید عافیت بفروخت رسوایی خرید عشق بر جان و دل او چیر گشت تا ز دل نومید وز جان سیر گشت گفت چو دین رفت چه جای دل است عشق ترسازاده کاری مشکل است. Love sacked his heart. The girl's bewitching hair twined round his faith impiety's smooth snare. The sheikh exchanged religion's wealth for shame. A hopeless heart submitted to love's fame. I have no faith, he cried. The heart I gave is useless now. I am the Christian's slave. The Sheikh's journey towards spiritual perfection is a real trial. It is the path from asceticism to mysticism. However, it is also a reference to the social stigma and marginalization that the Sheikh endures for his subversive love of the Christian girl and his abandonment of Islam. Fatemeh Keshavarz discusses Attar's use of the sun metaphor for the Christian girl's face and complexion in this story. Although Attar uses the metaphorical sun to portray the bright complexion of the Christian girl, the rays of the sun also highlight the most significant moments of the story. For instance, when the sheikh first meets the girl and she unveils herself, he compares her beauty to the sun and confides that both the sun and he himself appear to drown in envy and in the fire of her beauty. The light emanating from the Christian girl represents the earthly manifestation of divine light. Through this light, the sheikh is ultimately led to spiritual insight and perfection. Although initially she leads the sheikh astray, the Christian girl emanates light and illuminates the sheikh's heart. She is the means of the Sheikh's transformation. She is the mirror through which the Sheikh sees his own true heart. The sun resurfaces yet again in the dream of the Sheikh's disciple, featuring the radiant face of the Prophet Muhammad. Similarly, it reappears in the Christian girl's dream to guide the girl in her pursuit of the Sheikh and her final transformation in the desert. Thus, when she wakes up, it is a real awakening symbolized by the rise of a second sun. It is the sun which guides her to the Sheikh in the desert where she can find salvation. According to Keshavarz, the first sun in the story represents the radiant face of the girl. However, the second rising of the sun illuminates her heart. This time, the Sheikh becomes the earthly emanation of the light to guide the Christian girl on the right path. Now, the sun appears when the girl dies, and it slips under the cloud to signify her departure. The metaphorical sun represents the moments of yearning, struggle, joy, and union. And Keshavarz writes, and I'm quoting, "Through this reappearing meta sign, we have come to appreciate the interconnected nature of various events in the story and the various levels of human experience. Attar is aware that such capsulated poetic signs can deliver messages that would otherwise require pages of explanation," end quote. So Attar portrays the Christian girl as remorseful for her conduct at the moment of her death. She repents and she asks the Sheikh to admit her into Islam. Then she converts to Islam and immediately dies. Jalal Sattari believes that it is because of experiencing earthly love that the Sheikh emerges out of trials victoriously. Therefore, the best way to treat the Christian girl's character is to grant her with martyrdom in love. It is through love that the Christian girl is rewarded with liberation, particularly a spiritual one. The girl who initially was an idol and seduced the Sheikh has transformed him so that she now needs him for her own transformation. So it seems that each is the shahid for the other. In short, since the sacred supplants the profane, the Christian girl is subsequently left out of the story through conversion to Islam and martyrdom.